Hello everyone, this is Ali Reza. This is a video aiming for those that are modding for KSP and especially the developers of Unity Part Tool. I only looked at one video regarding this part tool, and what I'm talking about is what I think about. The ways that this thing can become more useful. The developers are made it so that you need to add component to any game object, and that component has a custom inspector. Okay, inspector. Now if we change this guy for not being a component and not having a custom inspector, but instead a window inside Unity, we are making a wizard. Okay, how this can help us? Well, let's take a look at a part.config file. In general parameters, we have something like name equals something, module equals something, and then author equals something. If I rip this part and put it in a txt file, and instead I use $1, $2, and $3, something like that. When I hit the finalize button, I can read these txt and replace these guys with the parameters that is provided by wizard. So our wizard would look like something like this. In first window, it will have 3 string inputs, one for name, one for module, one for author, blah blah blah. A next button. The next one will have a string and 2 sliders, one for the mesh, then for scale and rescale factor. Then we hit next, and this time our editor will have an array of game objects, and we'll hit next. Now this array is for the nodes definition. I will talk about it later. And when we hit next, we will have a window for fx. I'm not familiar with fx, so I don't know what will sit here. But again, we hit next. Then we will have another window that is bunch of, again, text and sliders, for example, for tech required, entry cost, category, subcategory, title, manufacturer, description, blah, blah, blah. And then next. In this window, we will have some, for example, booleans, and that is for attachment rules. Then we hit next, and we have our standard parameters that are again bunch of sliders and strings. And finally, when we hit next, we have a much more complex window. This one has 2 sections. On top, we can add a module from a list to already a list of modules that we can select, and then we have a bunch of parameters that are related to this module. Then we add another module, and we have new parameters that are related to this module. Okay? And finally, we hit next, and here is when you create your .mu, .mgm, and using all the collected data from these windows, a .cfg file. Okay? Of course, if you have more than one part that needs CFG, you can change this process a little, and I don't know, anyone who is a designer for Unity knows what I'm talking about, so it's not that complex. But I have two ideas here. One is for the nodes, one is here that we are changing the mass, etc. Okay, for the geo, for the nodes we have position X, position Y, position Z, up X, up Y, and up Z. I'm not sure what these guys are. You are the modder, you know what these guys are. But I think if, for example, this is my model for a very fancy part, I can put an empty game object on top and an empty game object on bottom. This will be my top node, for example. This will be my bottom node, okay? The current structure that we are using is a game object that has model and that has the collider. What if I add another empty game object and call it nodes, and I drag and drop them in here? So it will have two children now, top and bottom, and as many as I want in reality. Then in this part that we have an array, I can select all of these, drag and drop them into inspector or our window to add them to this list, or you can add a button that says, hey, add selected to the list. Okay, now when you have a game object in the scene view, the position, the local position is granted. As I said, I'm not familiar with these three. You may find a way to add them, okay? But I think it's addable. I'm not sure how, but I think it's addable. And another one is for the mess. Now, if we take this awesome model of mine as a part for your ship, I don't know what this part is. It's up to you, okay? But let's say that, for example, it's a fuel tank. As any Unity developer knows, this model has a bounding box. This bounding box has a min and a max. Okay? Min component has x, y, z. Max component has x, y, z. So if I say max minus min for x, y, and z, I get three numbers, 1, 2, 3, that says the diameter of this bounding box, okay? And this is a very rough way of estimating the size of your game object, by the way, okay? Now, if I say 1 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 3, and the 1 is the difference on x, 2 is y, blah, blah, you get the volume as M3. Now, I can use this as a scale for guessing the mass. Can I? Sure. Then I can have a button here in front of the mass saying, for example, estimate. When I hit it, this slider moves forward. Gives me a rough estimation of what should the mass of this object be. Of course, let's say that it's only two pipes that are crossing. Well, this guy shouldn't be a mass of total solid game object. So this is just an estimation. For a newbie on KSP modding, like myself, I'm not sure what a mass of a full tank should be. This gives me a rough estimation. then I can watch my model and say, you know what, it's a bit too much. I want it to be this. Okay? I think the same thing can be worked on for angular drag, min drag, and max drag, blah, 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 blah. So, at the end of the line, what we are doing, we are using some txt and replacing part of the string. We are getting a bunch of inputs from the user, and we are adding it to the file, and we are calculating some things and give guidelines. Okay? Using these, we can produce a CFG file, a config file that would look like this. By the way, it's from B9 Aerospace I'm using as a reference because, as I said, I'm not a mod developer myself. So, yeah, you know, why not? We can make this. And the modules, for example, this, I think this is a fuel module. So, yeah, it should be a fuel module. So, for example, in our module window, wow, what did I do? No. In our, come on, module window, I can select fuel and I will have the params for the fuel, and that's only one of the modules. Okay, let's say that I have another module for animation, so I can set the fuel, then add animation and set the params for the animation, electricity, and add it to the list. It can be a list of names as a string. For example, this is a very bad way of doing it, but a list of a string is this part. Okay? Then when I select one of these strings, this part will check if that string is this case or this case or this case, then it will show a bunch of params for me. And then assign them to another list of whatever we need, or a dictionary of string and string. Because even though we are seeing these guys, for example, here as a float number, in reality, the CFG file is a text. So we can have a string dictionary for the key and the value. Okay? And we can assign them per object in the string. So, for example, let's see, how can I do it? We can have a dictionary of string and a dictionary of string. The first one is the module name. The second dictionary is what goes inside this module name. Okay? And that's it. First, I think changing it from being a component into a wizard opens lots of doors for any sort of, you know, advanced stuff being added inside this wizard. Whatever you want now, you are able to do it. Also, another thing that I would like to see in this part tools pack is some CS files, you know, for those that are making DLLs. For example, the video I was watching dragged a CSS file inside the project for Sound Manager. All it was doing would play a sound and stop the sound. At least that's what I think it was doing. So it was a CSS file. It's not CSS, a .cs file, a C# script. So why not make a folder inside the package, for example, like script library. Put these useful general CS files inside of it so that a noob like me, at least noob in the terms of using the KSP API, can know, oh, okay, this is a good sound manager. If I want to add it inside the project, I have it already here. I just copy and paste it inside my DLL project from here. Instead of going and surfing all the source codes out there for other mods and see, oh, okay, is this a sound manager or is it not a sound manager? You will help a lot by doing this. Anyway, thanks for listening to my ideas. Hope it will be useful. And have fun, everyone. Bye-bye.